We can have
Report to
like a
the cloud.
backup.
Okay.
All right, so now we have 2 backups, okay? So you guys are good. All right, Kelly, anything else you need from the board office?
No, I
I
think
see
we're
all your
good.
speakers are here, the borough commissioner is here, the state DOT is here, so, okay.
Okay, thank you, Papa.
All right, you all have a good meeting. Good night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the January 19, 2023 meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Committee of Bronx Community Board 8. I am Kelli Buford, and I am the chairperson of the committee. At this time, I will call roll of committee members. Sylvia Alexander,
Present.
thank you. Chris Calhoun,
Good evening, Kelly, present.
thank you. David Gelman,
Present.
Mary Ellen Gibbs,
Present.
Dan Patternat,
Present.
Deb Travis,
Present.
thank you. I note that all committee members are present and we do have quorum to proceed. I would just like to go over a couple of housekeeping rules and basically state that we follow Robert's Rules of Order. We closely follow Robert's Rules of Order. If anyone, and everyone will be directed to speak at my direction. If anyone has any questions, they are asked at the appropriate time to raise his or her hand and wait until he or she is acknowledged. You will then have the floor. Time is of the essence this evening, and we will limit comments and questions to 2 minutes per speaker. If we seem to be going close to the deadline, we will further reduce that timing, and I'm going to ask Mary Ellen Gibbs to keep me honest with the timing. If that's okay with you.
Sure, I was just thinking that too. Funny. Good minds think alike.
Thank you. With that, I look forward to having a great meeting. And again, we welcome everyone to the call. Okay. Chairpersons, I will move on with this. I would like to also welcome invited guests to the call. And then I will move forward to the chairperson's report. And the chairperson's report is primarily for the committee members. A reminder that we are approaching budget season. And we would need to have budget items for discussion for the next meeting. So that would be the February meeting. And those would be budget items, proposed budget items for fiscal year 2025. Is that correct, David?
Yes, sorry.
It's okay, thank you. With that said, we can then move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the approval of the committee meeting minutes of November 17th, 2022. I direct the committee members' attention accordingly and ask if anyone has any questions regarding those minutes to direct them to me. Otherwise, I request a motion for the approval of the minutes as presented to the committee.
I'll motion.
Make a motion.
Second.
Thank you. Is anyone opposed to the minutes? Hearing nothing, the meeting minutes are approved. One final note, I apologize to the community. My camera appears to be on the fritz, and so I am unable to display my face at this time. But rest assured, I am here and you are in good hands with the rest of the committee that's here. Okay. Thank you.
I would just note for the record that your camera was on, I think it was before the recording started. So officially you did at least have a bit of on-camera time for the record.
Thank you, David. We can then move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 4, which is the request from All Town Limo to renew their application for their car service. Are the representatives from Alltown on the call?
Yes, we are. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Rodriguez, you may proceed with your request, please.
Okay, well, we're in the process of renewing our base license with New York City TLC. We've been in the community for a little bit over 8 years already. And we've been doing very well, and we'd like to continue operating in the Riverdale area. And we're actually for the committee's approval for our licensing now.
Thank you. I do not have any questions for Mr. Rodriguez or his associate. Does any committee member have any questions for Alltown?
Just one, Madam Chair. Mr. Rodriguez, how long does the base license last for?
It's the base license is every 2 years we have to renew,
Excellent. And what's your location?
right? 206 West 231st Street.
Perfect. And that's between Broadway and Godwin Terrace?
Yes, sir.
Or the, excellent.
And you moved there just before your last renewal, correct? From a couple blocks away?
Yes, we did. Prior to that, we were right almost on the corner of Kingsbridge in 244 West 231st.
Good. Kelly, did we get any input from the 5-0 about any issues? Not that I expect any.
We have not received any input from the 5-0 regarding any derogatory information. Also, I will note that they do offer a livery service for Access-a-Ride, and they take people to their doctor's appointments. So that's a plus for the community.
Do you own the cars yourself, or are you just dispatching other people who own their own cars?
No, we own the service, but the majority of drivers own their own vehicles.
Okay, so they take their cars with them at the end of the day?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
When you say service, it's really just the base station radio going out to the radios within the privately owned cars, correct?
Exactly. The drivers come and register with the base, they become affiliated with our services. And then we no longer use radio though. Everything now is digital, is going through the tablets or their cell phones.
All right. I'm showing my age.
If you don't mind me
Very good.
speaking up,
Very good.
this is Herb. You mind me speaking up? I don't have a flag here. This taxi company, Old Town, has been great. I've used it so many times, and sometimes several times a week. And within a very short period of time, they're able to get you a cab to get transportation. So thank you, guys.
Madam Chair, I would
Thank you,
just
Mr.
add-
Herb.
Madam
Thank
Chair,
you.
I would just add, I remember when Alltown came, I've heard nothing but good things about Alltown over the years. And if acceptable, I'd like to make a motion to support the application for the base livery license renewal.
Thank you.
I'll
Is there a
second it.
second? Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Does
very
any committee member oppose the request? Okay, hearing nothing, we will ask that a no objection letter be submitted on your behalf. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Mr.
thank you.
Good luck, and thank you for serving the community.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening, everybody.
You too. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the update on the Broadway Bridge project. And there are two DOT city projects here, so let me see. Miss Cruz?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So hi, I'm Teresa Cruz. I'm the senior planner at the Bronx Borough Commissioner's Office for DOT. And I'm joined by our interim borough commissioner, Keith Kalb, and also Renee Luciano from our office. So in terms of an update on Broadway Bridge project, my understanding was you wanted to get a better sense of when this project would be completed. So right now, a substantial completion is for spring of 2027. if you have any questions, you can feel free to send them to me and I'll get back to you.
So during thank you, the project, then those parking spaces that DOT is using for staging, those will continue to be unavailable to the residents of the community.
Yes.
And so that's almost 2 full parking, for 2 blocks of parking. Is that correct?
As of right now, yes. I can get back to you on whether that's going to be for the entire duration.
Okay. Dan Paternet, do you have a question?
Yeah, hi, Teresa. Can you just kind of give the committee a reminder of what the Broadway Bridge project is? So that way, you know, the folks on the call have an idea what we're talking about here and what it is actually that's going on right now.
For the, I'm sorry, you want to repeat that again, Dan? Sorry.
I think
He
I
would
thought
like-
we were talking about the, oh, I'm sorry, Madam
Go
Chair.
ahead, Dan. He wanted a recap of the entire Broadway Bridge project. So
Okay.
when it started, what's going on and why it's going to take so long. Thank you.
So we're doing a full rehabilitation of the Broadway Bridge. And then what was the additional question? That's
Well,
the name of the, so we're rehabbing the entire bridge.
When you say rehab, and what are you doing exactly?
So I can get back to you on the full scope. My understanding was the question was when the project would be completed, but I can get back to you on what the full scope of the project is as of right now. But we're doing a full rehab, which is essentially the bridge is, I'm sorry, I don't want to misspeak. So I can get back to you on the information about what the full scope of the project is.
Okay, Deputy Commissioner Cow, do you have any, Borough Commissioner Cow, do you have anything to add to Ms. Cruz's comments regarding the Broadway Bridge?
No, I have nothing more to add. Teresa will get you the information requested, which will be the full scope of the rehabilitation of the bridge.
Thank you. And when you send over the full scope of the rehabilitation of the bridge, if it's lengthy, can you please provide a recap sheet so that we can distribute that also to the community? Is that possible?
Are you not getting the updated
Yeah.
We're getting the updates,
notifications
but
from the CCL?
we are getting the notifications from the CCL, but the question on the table right now is for understanding of the project, because you have people who are newer to the community that may want to know what's going on. And this is something that has been impacting people for years and will continue to do so for years to come. So it would just be helpful if we could have a refresher as to what the major scope of the project is.
Okay, so you just need a full scope of what the
Correct.
rehabilitation is. Okay, we can get that for you. You asked for something after that.
Okay, thank you. That's fine. Thank you. David Gelman.
Yes, we actually asked this of something for our land use, something known as a, and I don't think we've gotten this in the past from you, is a like a Gantt chart, which shows the various steps or tasks, not to a micro level, but a macro level of what you're going to be doing and the approximate weeks or months when it will occur, because you're talking about many years. So there's, 30, 40, 50 months involved here. So do you have, as part of the overall scope, do you have a Gantt chart for the project that would tell us that, you'll be doing scraping now and re-riveting then, and you'll be doing painting here, and this is when you work on the MTA tracks and whatever?
We'll get all that put together for you.
Excellent.
That was
excellent.
I wasn't informed that that was the type of information we were asked. So it sounds to me like you need a full refresher of the reconstruction stages and the
Yeah,
schedule. Okay,
Yeah,
that was not
'cause-
explained to us. We got an email asking for completion date. So,
oh, I see. Okay.
so we were not,
Okay.
I'm sorry to inform you that we were not given advance notice that we needed
That's
full
fine. That's
scope
fine.
of the project and the schedule. We can certainly put that together, and we can certainly get you a copy of the of the presentation and with the scope and the scheduling and phasing and what's happening. As you guys know already, we've come to you about the Broadway Bridge in the past. before this project, we made the presentation many years ago. Before we started the actual project, we had to get the bridge up in order to hand it over to the contractor. That was a couple of years of trying to get some electrical issues resolved, because it is a movable bridge. It's a critical connection from Upper Manhattan to the Bronx. But I didn't realize that you needed such detail. That was not expressed to us from the office. So what we will do is we will come back at a later date with a full scope. Perhaps we'll get a small presentation, see what we can do, and then get you a schedule and a phasing and all that. Sorry about that. It was that wasn't communicated to us.
I think you're probably right that we didn't ask, and it has been a long amount of time, and there's probably been about 2/3 turnover on the committee. So I think that the refresher presentation will be useful, as well as the project plan Gantt chart. And I'm very confident that you'll be able to piece that together in the coming weeks. Thank you, Keith.
No problem.
Chris Calhoun, followed by Deb Travis.
Hi, my question regarding the Broadway Bridge is it operational for maritime traffic, marine traffic, boats? And the reason for my question is I'm somewhat connected with the Circle Line, the only commercial company that transits underneath that bridge consistently. And it also happens to be the lowest clearance of all the DOT Harlem River bridges. And that's why I ask.
That and the fact you live right near it, right?
That's also.
To be truly honest, I don't know the answer to that question. It is a movable bridge. It should be movable. The reason that it's being rehabbed is because we're having problems with it. It's a very old bridge and it carries the train above it. So it's a critical connector. But I don't know the answer, honestly, whether it is physically able to move today. But in order for it to be handed over to the contractor, it had to be movable. And so it is with the contractor working on it now. But again, we weren't prepared to answer this level of question. We thought we were answering a very simple one question about the timeline for the reconstruction or the rehab, not a reconstruction, it's a rehab.
Thank you. Mr. Calb, I do note that a message was sent to your office and you were asked to provide information on completion to date, when the work is done, and any reasons for delays and the projected dates for completion. So there was more information that was requested of your office. Okay, but we can move on to the next speaker. Please, Deb Travis, do you have any questions?
Actually, mine were answered. I've been on the committee for 3 years now, I guess, and I've never seen the presentation on the Broadway Bridge, and so I appreciate that they'll come back with just a recap to kind of bring us up to speed and let us know where it stands. That would be really great. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Calb and Ms. Cruz. Then we can move on to the next item for New York City DOT, which is information on loading zones that will be added to the Marble Hill neighborhood. And in the meeting notice that was sent to the community, the specific loading zone areas were included. And for the record, I will state that the loading zones, one loading zone will be on West 225th Street from Adrian Avenue to Jacobus Place. The other will be on Marble Hill Avenue from West 225th Street to Fort Charles Place. And with that, Ms. Cruz and Mr. Calb, I will yield to you. Thank you.
Thank you. The Kira and Laura had reached out to me just to give a little backstory, because according to this letter, you guys had 30 days to write a written response. However, it was sent December 20th and this meeting was for the 19th. And so originally my coming here was just to field the question so that I could take it back and get some responses for you. Since you weren't going to be able to get the 30 days, but we've actually established that you are going to be able to send a written response. So I can field any questions that you have today as best as I can, but I can also, you can also include them in the written response and we will respond to you in the same manner. I do want to clarify that for the locations, it's about 2 parking spaces and it will be daytime regulation. So the parking will be restored overnight. But I'm happy to take any questions that you guys have based on the letter.
So when you say 2 parking spaces, that's 2 parking spaces at each location, is that correct?
Yes, so about four.
So a total
about
of
4.
parking spaces? Okay,
4.
and is DOT planning to do anything, since this is directly adjacent to the Broadway Bridge project, is DOT planning to do anything to to give the community back some of those spaces?
Not at this time. Not at this time, but like I said, I will get back to you on whether those parking spaces are during the entire duration of the project or if they'll be changing as the stages of the project change.
Thank you. Chris Calhoun, followed by David Gelman.
Hello again, everybody at DOT. I live right near these 2 loading zones, and my concerns are, as exists in most of the city, parking's at a premium. And the 225th Street zone that you have planned already has a fire zone in that area, a no parking zone for a church that doesn't even exist anymore. It was torn down, and a construction zone. So that particular area really can't stand to lose many more spots. As far as Marble Hill Avenue goes, it has a large no parking zone in front of a school there. And you should see the way people park around here at night. Just about every hydrant is blocked, crosswalks. I mean, there's no place to go anymore. And I know that just doesn't exist in Marble Hill. It has been brought up at several of our board meetings in Riverdale and Kingsbridge. It's just getting crazy to find places to park. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. David?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the second spot, but the first one, 225, I think that's at the corner of Broadway. There really isn't, I believe it, the purpose of the loading zone is to help out the loading or deliveries to the various stores. There really isn't much of in the way of a store there on 225. There's a lot of stores on Broadway, but they also have metered parking. So I'm just wondering why this parking is being placed on 225, because it's really not serving much there.
Sorry, so this isn't just for businesses. This is also for any sort of pickup or drop off service. It's also for, the local UPS truck, FedEx truck. It's a place for them to load to kind of mitigate a lot of the double parking that's happening in the city.
I see. Thank you.
Mhm.
Dan Paternak, followed by Deb Travis.
Hi, Teresa. Just 2 questions, I guess. Was this done by DOT on its own, or was this a resident/business request? And the second question is, what is the urgency of the request? Meaning,
So we're doing this as part of a local law 168. And the locations were selected based on locations that we found that double parking concerns had come in, any sort of double parking violations had come in. That was how we selected the locations. And I'm sorry, what was the second question?
I guess the
Or did I answer
urgency.
them? I'm sorry.
Well, I guess the second part of it, what was the urgency? And I guess just coming back to what you said, I'm guessing you said double parked locations. Is that based upon, the highest number of summons in that area?
Yes, we also looked at density, we looked at crash data, we looked at the street geometry. Those were some of the various factors that we took into picking these locations. But we are looking, to if the community has any feedback on any locations that they would like to see these loading zones be placed. And then in terms of urgency, like I said, it's part of local law 168. We are required we were required to report on the progress of its implementation by January. Like I said, the letter was sent in December.
When you're saying you're required, is that by the city council or
Yeah. By the city council.
Thank you.
If you don't mind me saying something, stepping back for a moment about the Broadway Bridge. I'm here long enough that I remember the Broadway Bridge being built down by Fordham Road on barges. And it was a nice project just to watch it once in a while, stand by there and see those people, how they put that bridge together like an erector set. And then they floated it up the river. And if you could imagine building a bridge down by Ford Road, floating it up, and the measurements have to be precise, obviously. And when they lifted it up with the cables with the hoist system, it just fits in place. So it's kind of marvelous how that bridge was put together and put in place. So if it has some problems here and there, I guess it's okay.
Thank you. Dan Paternak, do you have any additional questions?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. That was for before.
Okay, thank you. Deb Travis.
Hey there. So questions are, A, is this a pilot, or is this, will we expect that this will be kind of permanent unless there's a big issue with it?
This is permanent as of right now.
Okay. As permanent as we can understand it to be, I guess.
Yes.
The enforcement, what are the hours that it's going to be a loading zone? And is it, I saw some signs like this in Manhattan a couple days ago. It was like there were certain hours that, and it was for loading and unloading people, passengers, and for delivery trucks like UPS and stuff. Is that kind of the same as this?
Yes.
And so what are the hours?
I don't have the specific hours. I was told that they would be daytime regulations, so overnight parking would be restored.
Okay, so it's
Usually
essentially
we use like a 7 to 7.
Okay, so essentially this will help people who are coming home from work who drive daily, because they'll be gone before the parking goes into place. And I do know that's something that people complain about a lot who actually use their cars, is that then if they go use their car to go to work, there's no place to park when they get home, and because people tend to not move their cars at all once they've got a spot. What's the enforcement look like? Like when people, like, how can you tell how long someone's been in a spot, since they're supposed to really just be actively loading and unloading? If you're going by when summonses are given out, oftentimes that's people who just actually parked in the middle of the street and left. Like what will enforcement look like for the loading zones themselves?
So enforcement would be done through the New York Police Department. So that, like how they're going to enforce it, it would be enforced like every other sign in the city is enforced by PD. I would ask them how they're planning to enforce it.
And then my last question is just to go back to the first thing that was that Chris was talking about, where there's a church that has an old kind of parking restriction. Do you occasionally do reviews, right, of a block? If we say, can we review this no parking zone to see if it can be opened up again?
Yes.
That's something you would do. Chris, do you think it would be appropriate? I don't know the space that you're talking about, but do you think it would be appropriate to have DOT review that to become parking again?
The whole building was torn down. I believe it was Chuck Mortler, who's a board member, everyone knows, brought up to me that I think Timberland Equities took over this property. They bought out 3 private homes and this commercial strip. And I don't know what's due to go up there, but you got a clear shot of the Promenade Apartments now. And that's where they want to put in this loading zone. Out of the 2 of them, I really think the one there at 225th between Jacobus and Adrian is a mistake, and you might want to revisit that area.
But what you were saying, that there was another, like in nearby, there was another kind of loading zone or no parking zone because of a church that's not there anymore.
That's right adjacent to where they want to put in this loading zone. It's across the street from it.
So maybe that could be opened up for parking. So essentially it's a even.
Well, it's all construction zone right now, and adjacent to that is a fire zone to allow the fire trucks to get through on Ferris View Avenue. For those that know, it's a very narrow winding street.
Yeah. What's the address where the construction is? What, you know?
160 West 225th Street.
Okay.
And the promenade is 150 West 225th Street.
So maybe that's also something we can do to make it to at least get some parking back.
And I'll just say generally, if there's any locations where the land use has changed or the building has changed and the sign is not warranted anymore, you can always send us a request and we can go out and take a look at it again.
Do you have any place that's posted online, what institutions get parking, get no parking zones in front of them? Is that someplace we can find online, just that way, because I don't know if I know even like who qualifies and who doesn't to know when to raise it, but because the use has changed, you know what I'm saying?
I do believe it's on our website.
Okay.
I can see if I can find it now and share it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Vittorio and Mr. Lara, followed by Ms. Cologne.
Yeah, my question is with regards to the loading zones. You noted that the community could request more of these, and we have a similar problem at 230th and Broadway, which creates a lot of congestion. Where could feedback be left for that?
I'm sorry, so the issue is that there isn't enough loading on 230th?
Yeah, we have a lot of double parking, UPS trucks, the USPS trucks, and a lot of people double parking along that block from, I would say, 230th from Broadway to the next block heading towards Riverdale Avenue. And we've had this problem for quite a while, and it creates backups, particularly if you're coming off the Deegan and coming on to 230th from Broadway. We have backups there in part because of that. So where would you leave feedback for more loading zones?
So as response to this letter, like it says that you can provide us written feedback within 30 days. You can definitely suggest any additional locations that you'd like us to look at.
Okay.
Mr. Lara, did you have any questions? I saw your hand up.
Ms. Cruz answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Jody Cologne.
Hi, just information, the Timber Equities property, the one that bought up the church, they are rebuilding the space for the church as part of that. I think it's a 100-unit apartment building. So it's not going to be no church. There's still going to be a church there.
And I'm sorry, the address of the church is 150 West 225?
160.
160, sorry, thank you.
Yeah, there was a church and then I think 3 or 4 houses that they purchased. So that I would just look into that because I think once they finish, the church is going to be in that building as well. That's all.
Thank you. Are there any other questions related to this matter? Any other comments? Okay, thank you. We can then move on to the next item on the agenda. Thank you, Mr. Calb and Ms. Cruz.
Thank you so much for having us.
Which is the New York State Department of DOT update on the Henry Hudson Parkway project. Mr. Bayer, are you on the call?
Yes, I am. Good evening, Madam Chair and Bronx Community Board 8 committee members and guests. Good evening. My name is Thomas Bayer. I'm the assistant to the regional director here in New York State DOT, Region 11, New York City region. I was asked to explain what emergency occurred at the end of the year, last year, along Henry Hudson Parkway West and Henry Hudson Parkway between West 235th Street and West 231st Street, where we had to engage the city DOT and restrict parking along several blocks and begin our staged construction. Right now we had barrels out there. Now we have barrier out there. So as an update for the safety of the traveling public, we work with city DOT, city OEM, and NYPD to restrict the parking along those several blocks between West 235th Street and West 231st Street. We put these restrictions in place over 2 days. And these restrictions were required to shift the one lane of traffic on the southbound Henry Hudson Parkway West from the left side over to the right side against the curb. We needed to remove traffic away from the high side of the retaining walls that are located between Henry Hudson Parkway West and the southbound Henry Hudson Parkway. About 20 parking spaces have been restricted, but these restrictions are only in the place where needed to shift the traffic lane over. As you may know, these walls are scheduled to be rehabilitated this year and into next year under the recently let project that is now awaiting award. And this project was progressed due to progressive tilt of these old retaining walls toward the parkway below. And this tilt has been increasing very slowly over many years, and it was determined that now's the time to do something about it. And the project is to rehabilitate these walls. So during the design of this project, these walls have been continually monitored for movement since back in December 2021. And the project will stabilize, reinforce, and reconstruct these walls from the bottom and from the top. Several sections or panels of these walls showed increasing amount of tilt after the pre-Christmas rain event and the following freezing temperatures, where it went from mid 40s during the day and raining till into about 20 degrees overnight. That those two factors move the wall a little bit further than we had anticipated, and it brought us concern. So they added to the ongoing tilt and increased our concern. Our structural design engineers recommended as first measure, we remove the load of traffic away from the pavement directly behind the high side of the walls to slow the movement of the wall panels. It appears the ongoing tilting has slowed without this live load of traffic directly behind the walls, and we can now transition with an increased level of safety into the rehab project that'll begin work in a few months after the project gets awarded. But during this time, we're utilizing another existing construction contract to establish work zones at the top, behind the walls, and at the bottom down along the shoulder of the southbound Henry Hudson Parkway. And these measures that we're doing now will give the contractor a head start on their setup to start the wall reconstruction. We've met with the new contractor to discuss this, and we plan to work with them to progress the work as efficiently as possible in order to shift the southbound service road traffic back away from the curb line to give back the parking sooner than originally anticipated. The idea is that we understand we took away parking, roughly 8 months or so sooner than we had originally planned, but we're hoping that we can return it sooner than the fall of 2024 or the end of fall 2024, which is the current completion date of the contract. We're hoping to return it sooner than that, and we're hoping things go smoothly during the contract. So we expedited the design and the letting. We noticed that these walls were tilting. We expedited the design and letting of this current contract, and we're hoping to avoid needing to activate any emergency measures like we had to at the end of 2022. However, the recent wall movements were concerning to a level to us that required some immediate action in the interest of preserving life and property above all else. So this is where we're at now, and what you're gonna be seeing in the near future is more activity around the wall. Next week, we're currently planning on installing a temporary concrete barrier on the parkway, just for those 4 blocks from West 235th Street to West 231st Street along the wall. It's going to narrow the 2 lanes slightly. With 3 lanes, sorry, 3 lanes slightly by about a foot apiece. But it'll be done smoothly with striping and delineate a barrier, and that will establish the work zone down below as well. So I'm here to answer any questions you may have, and so.
Thank you, Mr. Bayer. First question is David Gelman.
Yes, thank you. I'll have some later, but just 2 things. One, just like the city DOT on the Broadway Bridge, do you have a project plan, a Gantt chart that you can share with us? Because it sounds like you've taken some actions on an urgent basis for concerns about the walls, and I understand that makes sense. But do you have a project plan, a Gantt chart for the project? And a specific question we asked when your folks made presentation to us in the fall is what are your plans to address the stone cladding on this this bridge piece that's a part of a New York State's scenic highway?
Noting your question, I'll have to get back to you on the stone cladding question. Generally historic elements are recreated in the new wall. In general, that's about all I could say on that right now without more detail from our designers.
That's fine.
Okay. So the Gantt chart, yes, I can address that. I don't have a Gantt chart to share with you tonight, but what I can explain to you briefly is the 3 phases of the contract. The 3 stabilize the wall, meaning stabilize the wall, reconstruct the face of the wall, and reconstruct the top of the wall. Those are the 3 main phases of the contract. So linearly, the contract is a 1.5+ year contract linearly. We are in communication with the contractor to stagger start these 3 stages. The stabilization is a drilled and grouted earth anchors through the wall at 1 or 2 levels through the face of the wall down on a roughly a 45-degree angle to anchor the wall in place. Second major phase is to reface the wall for structural stability and added structure to the stem of the wall, the vertical part of the wall, and that'll give it structural integrity and restore them back to a vertical looking condition. And then the 3rd phase is reconstruction of the parapet wall up on top with what we call a moment slab. It's basically a structural L, if you will, and the service road up top is part of the L, is the back part of the L. So that is a very stable structure, and that's the 3rd phase. So the talk is to start phase 1, and then after a little bit start phase 2, and after a little bit start phase 3. And the plan is to get done a little bit sooner than originally anticipated.
No, I understand, and your presentation in the fall gave us diagrams of that. It just would be useful to see the Gantt chart and be able to monitor loosely the progress of the project so that the community knows what's going on when these things are happening, and periodically have you come back to us and tell us about the actual progress against the Gantt chart. I was not expecting you to show one tonight.
Okay, great. Then we could do that. Absolutely.
Excellent.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Committee member Gibbs.
Hi, my question was already answered with, it was pertaining to the stone. So thanks, Kelly.
Thank you. Mr. Dakin?
Yes, thank you. I'm a member of the board of directors of the Whitehall, and our property covers virtually the entire span of this work. As we're on the west side of the Henry Hudson Parkway, our property runs from 235th all the way down to 232nd. We have a few questions, one of which is whether Well, we understand that this work will be primarily done at night. Is that correct?
No. The work will primarily be done during the day.
Okay. Second question is, at any point in time, will the service road, the west service road fronting our property be totally closed to allow this construction to take place? And if I'm sorry, if it were, that could create, enormous problems for us in the event that we had a fire.
Can't close.
Excuse me.
Bus
I
route.
haven't finished my question. So. But that is my question. I mean, is there at any point in time, will that service road from 235th to 231st, 232nd, I'm sorry, be totally closed because of the construction work that's underway? If it were, that might prevent emergency vehicles from accessing the east-facing exposure of our building in the event that we had, for example, a fire, God forbid. But so I just need to know if that is that a possible event that might happen during the entire course of this reconstruction.
In general, with these types of projects, being that there's only one lane of traffic in front of the Whitehall on, or is it the back of the Whitehall? I'm not sure. On
the front.
The front. Okay. So since there's one lane of traffic and the work zone is directly adjacent, in general, there may be stoppages of traffic during off-peak hours when they can for them to get their equipment in and out and materials in and out. Those are generally done with pausing the traffic for a few minutes at a time when they're needed to be done. I do anticipate, without having the plans in front of me, I do anticipate from a construction standpoint, there will be a detours at certain times due to the fact that the Henry Hudson Parkway West will be reconstructed at the end of, repaved at the end of the project. Roughly the left side is going to be reconstructed, and the entire Henry Hudson Parkway, the curb to curb, will be repaved. So for that repaving, that'll be done during off-peak hours. That part of the project might be done at night due to traffic. And for that repaving, I would anticipate traffic being detoured around the block, a combination detour where traffic is told to stay on the parkway, or local traffic is detoured one block over to the backside of the Whitehall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but obviously, if there's an emergency,
Mr. Dakin,
It's 2 minutes.
Mr. Dakin, we have a number of people waiting in the gallery to speak, and I'm going to have to ask you to please defer your next question, and if we have time, we can come back to you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Mr. Vittorio.
Yeah, I think my questions have been answered. So basically, as was asked, the service road won't be closed at any point in time aside from any setup of construction, and the work will happen in the daytime, nothing at night.
I would say correct, aside from possibly paving and line striping. I would anticipate paving and line striping to be done at night towards the end of the contract. But primarily, most of the work, I would say 95% of the work is currently planned to be done during the day.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Cologne?
Well, thank you, Kelly. Two related questions. One, you mentioned that the walls shifted during the heavy rain and freeze. Do you have a plan to monitor it during any upcoming storms that may create those same conditions?
Yes.
And great.
Okay, go ahead.
And then the second question, because I don't want Kelly to cut me off for 2 minutes, is related. As we all know, that area floods not just in December 23rd, but it floods a lot. When you're doing the road reconstruction and repaving, will you be regrading or doing anything to help reduce that amount of flooding in the future?
We are working with DEP on the drainage, on the condition of the and the cleanliness of the drainage pipes down on the parkway. The drainage structure behind the wall just south of West 232nd Street will be replaced under this contract, and along with that, the pipes will be cleaned and reconstructed as needed. So we do expect the flooding situation to be somewhat improved at the end of this contract.
Great, thank you. And the monitoring piece.
And the monitoring is continuous. The monitors that were installed on the wall end of 2021 are still in place, and the wall is continually monitored, and the tilt condition is somewhat stabilized as of right now.
Thank you, Judy. Mr. Resnick?
Yes, hi. Thanks so much. So I actually came to ask one sort of tangentially related question, but some of the comments made me think of something that I want to clarify more directly. I also live in the Whitehall, moved here about a year ago. And just to follow up on Mr. Dakin's questions, to clarify, I didn't anticipate any road closure, but I do want to get a better understanding. So in the event of a transient road closure at the end during off hours that requires a detour for repaving or for lining or whatever you called it, repaving, the issue that I would be concerned about is not so much the traffic that accesses, before you get onto the highway, but actually the access to the highway itself. So when there's a detour, what would that detour would be to a completely different southbound entrance to the Henry Hudson. This being the last one, the furthest south before you get on the bridge. So how would that happen? I mean, I guess you'd have to go all the way back up to the north to what, like 246th or something, or is that right?
I would think so, yes. I'm familiar with somewhat familiar with the area. I would say if we have to close the service road south of West 232nd Street, we will, and I'll note that the detour there has to be an alternate route posted to go north so traffic can access the Henry Hudson Parkway prior to the Henry Hudson Bridge.
Yeah, so that's significant, but hopefully it'll just be a short period of time. My second question is actually, I'm just going to tie this in. It's tangentially related by a couple blocks, and that is that since I moved to the neighborhood, I noticed that the crossing, that we have two crossings over the highway that we're in the middle of at the Whitehall, which, as you know, is like one of the larger buildings here, and the one north of us on 235th, 236th Street is kind of inconvenient for many people because it's built sort of it goes only in one direction, and if that one direction isn't the direction you're headed, it's very inconvenient. And I was always wondering, how would I bring this up? But maybe this is an opportunity. Probably not, but I figured I'd ask about it. Changing that bridge or adding stairways that are bi-directional, maybe there's an opportunity for that. I don't know if there's interest or other people in the community who think of that, but particularly for Whitehall residents, again, which is a large population, you have to walk very far north and then north again over the bridge to then head south to really the more popular business area. So it makes more sense to go over the bridge and then come back down the bridge in the same direction that you started going over it. So I don't know if stairways can be added, or that's obviously a different project, but I don't know if it could be tagged onto here or what I would go about doing to try to petition for that.
Pedestrian access is something we work with City DOT on. If there are structures involved, we look to who owns the structures and whose project that would be under. You're talking about West 235th Street or 236th Street?
Well, I don't know what it's considered. It's because it basically goes over 2 blocks. I don't know if the bridge is considered 235th or 236th.
And this
Are you
is
talking about the footbridge?
The footbridge, exactly.
That's
Yeah.
235.
235.
Yeah. Mhm.
footbridge, and there's a stairway down to the parkway on one side.
No, the stairway, this is just across, yeah, on both sides, but it kind of goes from the south on the west side, all to the all a very far, further northern part on the east side. And doesn't take you back to the same place you started on the opposite side of the bridge, if you will.
East side. Okay.
Mr. Bear, is the 232 bridge going to be closed?
No.
No,
No, I didn't think so.
No, the West 232nd Street Bridge won't be closed during this project.
Right.
No.
So there should be no impact.
There's no impact. It's just a question about sort of a redesign or a modernization or update to that bridge, which is, maybe there's an opportunity while you're doing this reinforcement of the highway to add some steps to the bridge. I don't know. Anyway,
I was just
Kelly?
looking at
Thank
the
you.
I was just looking at the budget priorities for the
Please.
committee, and I think that's number 7.
Hold on, Deb.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was just adding.
It's okay. We can come back to Mr. Resnick's comment because that was actually not part of the plan discussion, and we can address that at a later time, and we can then move on to Ms. Ginty, who has her hand raised.
Yeah,
Rosemary?
thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to, just a couple of questions, but the first is really just to verify something that you said, Mr. Bayer. There was a presentation before this committee a number of months ago. I was not in attendance, but it was reported to me that the engineers or the project people who spoke said that out of a 1.5-year project, 6 months out of that, the work would be done at nighttime from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. You just said there'd be no work at night. I want to verify that if you don't mind. Can I please verify that statement? Again, I did not hear anybody from DOT state 6 months of night work, but it was reported to me. So can you please just verify that again? No night work for a 1.5 years.
I wouldn't say no night work. I would say after our conversations with the low bid winning contractor, or the winning contractor, we'll call them. They're an experienced contractor. We had pre-bid meetings with them, and they're not planning at this time. They're not planning on working at night. They believe they can access the site and bring in their equipment during the day, during daytime working hours. So anything that involves noise is currently planned to be done during the day.
That is excellent to hear. Very glad to hear. When you installed the barriers just recently, you did that at night, and at 3:30 in the morning, you were still going at it. So I just had a vision of 6 months of night work, but you're saying there is no night work. Thank you for that.
Essentially.
My second question is, because the only travel lane is the parking lane, right? The only travel lane is the parking lane. We have in front of the Whitehall trees that are 30, 40, 50 years old. It's a magnificent stretch of trees. Because it's a parking lane, they don't get interrupted. The buses were not routed to Independence Avenue immediately. And so for days and days, they went down Henry Hudson Parkway Service Road. They have taken limbs off of trees. The street is pickled with limbs and twigs, and a number of the trees actually have some pretty deep gashes in them from the buses. The buses now, I'm happy to report, are fully on Independence Avenue. But can anyone from the city who is an expert in trees come and take a look at the damage that was done to these trees? And is there any mitigation necessary? And if there is, can it be done? That's my question. Thank you.
Right, we are in communication with MTA Bus regarding the current bus detours. And we're working with New York City Parks to resolve the current issue with the tree branches in conflict with the buses. And we have New York City Department of Parks and Recreation has engaged their forestry department to inspect and prune the trees.
Okay, is that being done now or that's something for the future? Just help me out here.
That's being done now, as soon as possible, meaning, you know, I'm guessing starting, you know, this week into next week. Noting the rain today, and today's Thursday, I would imagine they might be out tomorrow or next week, at the earliest.
Well, if they just say, I don't want to belabor this, but if there's a report of damage to these trees, I certainly, as a board member and a resident of the community, would be interested in understanding the damage that has occurred and if there can be mitigation to remedy it. Okay, that's my request.
We could pass that
Thank
along.
you.
Thank you. I'll pass that along to Parks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ginty. Mary Ellen Gibbs.
I just forgot one thing. When do you anticipate the project to be over? Like, do you have a date?
Yes, late fall 2024 is our completion date of the contract. We're hoping to work with the contractor to complete it sooner than that.
Oop, thank you so much. Yes, I'm Jerry's sister.
Thank you, Mr. Dakin.
Yes, my final question is this. Does the examination of the retaining walls also cross over to the east side of the Henry Hudson Parkway? And was the same problems noted if that inspection was done, and leading to, once this west side project is complete, will they then shift over to the east side?
No, there's no plan to shift over to the east side. The east side has been inspected. It's not showing, the east side is not showing the tilt like the west side is.
Okay.
It's, if you look, it's essentially, they're essentially vertical, even though they're similar walls.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Does any committee member have any additional questions or comments? David, Deb?
I have a comment for the end of this presentation, the very end.
Okay, we can consider this the end of the presentation, and I don't see any more hands up.
Oh, okay, great. Well, actually, I want to just sort of, if you'll indulge me, I'd like to bump ahead a little bit for new business because it's very relevant to these folks, to the staff and Mr. Baer. Just wanted to let people know that the MTA just published their new bike, pedestrian, and micromobility strategic action plan based on something that's passed by the legislature a couple of months ago, where they've got to get bikes and micromobility fully integrated into trains and bridges. To that end, they published this strategic action plan this week, and in it was something called Safe Routes to Transit and Bridges. And there's an item in there called a shared use path for Henry Hudson Bridge is expected to be completed by 2024. I spoke with the engineer responsible for this work on the Henry Hudson Bridge today, and I want to let you know that they will be designing and letting a contract out this year to expand the pedestrian path on the lower level of the Henry Hudson Bridge from the current 4 feet all the way inward to make it 10 feet wide, which is terrific for bikes and pedestrians. But the reason why I wanted to talk about it now is that one of the things that they're going to be doing is if you take the pedestrian path all the way to the north as it exits the bridge, there's a staircase going on to the Henry Hudson service road. They will be removing that staircase and extending an ADA compatible pathway going north. Why you would care, Mr. Bear, is that your reentry from the service road at 232 is about 100 yards south of the 232 bridge. The exit from the Henry Hudson back off onto the service road and accessing Capuck Street is about another 50 yards. And this ADA change that they're going to make is going to be right there. So I think it's important that you folks have some early, deep conversations with the MTA Bridges, and I can get you the contacts if you like, to plan out the exit and entrance from 232 to the bridge, because there could be an awful mess. And your design and construction time frame will mesh quite well with their design and construction time frame. So I wanted to get that new information out to the committee, but also alert you to what they're doing. And there's a good chance you're aware of it, but now's a good time to talk with them so that your entrances and exits match up. And that's all.
Thank you very much. As a department, we are aware of their project, and I will verify that our project team is aware of this project as well, and the work zone traffic control impacts and the coordination involved. Thank you so much for that information. It's really helpful.
Good.
Awesome.
Glad to. And so that's my my new business report to you, Kelly, as well. And I can talk with you later about. They said they'd be glad to come and make a presentation in the coming months when they're closer in their design and whatnot. But I wanted to get the gist of the 10-foot wide path out there. I think it'll be quite good.
Thank you, David. Much appreciated. And yes, please extend an invitation to them and we can coordinate schedules later. Thank you. Mr. Bayer, thank you for your time. Appreciate your candor. Appreciate your answering the questions of the community, and have a nice evening. You're welcome to stay on the call, but you're not obligated to do so. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your time, and thank you for everything tonight.
Thank you. Okay. Is there any other new business to come before the board? The committee, I'm sorry.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No, yes, proceed. Proceed.
Okay. Whether school cameras are involved in this committee, or what is the other committee that it would be involved in?
Speed, you mean school zone speed cameras, Herb?
Yes.
Public safety?
Public and safety. Do you have a specific location that is a problem?
Yes, I have a specific complaint, actually. Sometime back on Kingsbridge Avenue, a speed camera, because it doesn't do anything for the school, a speed camera was installed at the corner of 233rd Street, facing north, and the traffic light is 2 blocks away. So it doesn't seem to make sense to be facing that way. And on top of that, it doesn't do any good for the students or the traffic light where the students are getting out of school, right on the corner of 232nd Street. So my proposal is to turn that camera around in whatever way they can and let it face towards the 232nd Street traffic light, and at the same time help all those hundreds of children coming out of school and all those yellow buses parked and double parked at the same time, confusing traffic for a period of time. Thank you.
Thank you. We will share your comments with our colleagues in the Public Safety Committee as well as with the board office.
And Herb, I love your picture of the Grove.
Thank you.
Mr.
I
Resnick.
love the river behind you. I hope it looks it's as clean as it looks.
I know I wasn't sure how things work around here, so just bringing up the thing I brought up before and seeing if new business is the place to slot it in there, or what procedure I would go through to kind of raise
You
that.
can proceed with your question.
Right, so I was just kind of asking about that pedestrian bridge there and sort of its inconvenient build. I don't know if other bridges tend to be like that, if it's an older bridge, but it would be useful to have it be sort of symmetric, or maybe build some stairs coming down, on the northeast side and the south. I'm sorry, the northwest side and the southeast side of that pedestrian bridge.
So Kelly, can I speak?
Yes, please. Step followed by Dan Paternak.
So, so Seth, I wanted to just point you to one of the things that this committee does is we make recommendations for community board priorities for budgeting for capital and expense. And so that's actually the process will be kicking off really next month. But the West 235th pedestrian walkway is for fiscal year 24 was this committee's number 3 capital budget request. And it was to reconstruct that walkway over Henry Hudson Parkway. And so we can, it's been on the budget priorities for a while. Usually things that kind of get up towards the top like that have been around for a bit. And certainly we can tweak the language, at a next meeting or a future meeting to also include maybe widening it or, changing a little bit, like, fixing the thing that you're describing. But that would be the normal way that we would impact something like that, which would be a large capital program project, would be to request a study or to request a reconstruction of something like that.
Cool. So I'm not the only person. This has a history. So how do I find out how to attend the next meeting so that I can, give my input for that if it comes up?
I'll let the chair answer that.
The meetings are the third Thursday of the month.
Third Thursday of the month.
Absent any holiday juggling that would have to be done, but they're generally the third Thursday of the month. And the community board office will send out a calendar later this month that will have all the meeting dates for the respective committees.
Okay.
Just be aware, it's not ADA compliant, so it will be all or nothing at all.
Yeah,
it's a big job.
Yeah, I bet it's I'm aware of that. And does that widening thing that you mentioned, by the way, Mr. Gilman, sounds great. Does that include bike accessibility? So you don't have to carry your bike down
on the bridge itself? Yes.
Yeah, awesome. Great.
I had one piece of old business. I wasn't sure if we jumped to new business. I wasn't sure if we had skipped old business or if we're coming back.
We're gonna come back to old business, Deb. Thank you.
Okay, I'll see you there.
All right, thank you, Dan Paternak.
Yeah, just one very quick note. We did, with the 235th, they did basic repairs to that bridge, I think a couple of years back. They had come to this committee a few years ago. At that time, when state DOT came to us, we had the discussion about a new bridge and putting it on budget requests. And I remember with city DOT, rather, Navardo had said, first you need to do a study, to estimate the cost. And the problem that we have with that bridge is the ADA compliance that Dave is mentioning, because there's not a lot of room on either side of it. And you do have a certain grade that you have to meet. So I think our budget request that we've been putting in the last couple of years was to do a study to see what could be done. So we were asking for a budget item to actually get money for a study, and that study to show what could actually be done with ADA compliance. That was it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you. All right. Hearing no further new business, we can go back to old business. Deb?
I just wanted to raise the, so just in prep, thinking about budget priority discussions and stuff for the coming months, we put a bunch of step streets on the expense and some capital last year, and with the hope that like DOT was gonna go to some of them, you know, inspect them, do the smaller repairs that needed to be done, and then they would kind of shake out so we would know which ones should stay on for future expense priorities. I don't know if you've heard anything back from them, but I wanted to try to get ahead of that a little bit and see if there's been any updates and what we can do to, you know, to pare down that list so it's nice and concise for next year's budget priorities.
I don't recall, and I will look at it and notify the committee accordingly.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you. David Gelman?
Yes, we all just got the from the office, I think it was yesterday, the mayor's initial response, which as usual is from each of the agencies. Nice idea. We don't have the budget. Talk to your council member. And I think the step streets were often in that category. So.
Thank you. Appreciate the input, David. Sylvia Alexander?
Good evening. I don't know if you've gotten any answer from DOT as to the question that I raised when the Commissioner Rodriguez was at St. Margaret's. I don't remember which month that was, about the crossing at 235th Street opposite Key Food, where a 99-year-old woman was killed in August. The assistant commissioner promised that they would look into it, the DOT would look into it. I see no changes whatsoever, and I'm wondering if you got any feedback.
I have not received any feedback on that, but I will definitely ask the office to follow up on the intersection of 235 and Oxford.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, any other old business from the committee members? Any other new business? Is Mr. Godlewicz on the phone, on the call, Jason Godlewicz? Okay. I know that he had a question, concern regarding Marble Hill. I wanted to make sure he had an opportunity to speak. If there is no further business to come before the committee, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to close, Mary Ellen?
Motion.
Second motion.
Thank you. Motion has been properly made and seconded. I thank everyone for your time this evening. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Great week. Take care. Stay safe.
You too, Kelly. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Well done.
Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you. Good night.